Our big focus? Well, India will not withdraw its World Trade Organization complaints against US tariffs on steel, aluminium and automobiles unless the dispute is resolved, even as negotiating teams from both sides began intensive talks in New Delhi to finalize an early bilateral trade deal as per reports. In fact, a team led by Assistant US Trade Representative Brendan Lynch arrived in New Delhi late on Wednesday for discussions with the Ministry of Commerce team that began on Thursday. The talks are scheduled for 2 days of engagements as both countries are working towards an announcement on an early portion of the bilateral trade agreement, potentially this month itself. The negotiations, though, you must note, they come against a critical July 9th deadline when an additional 16% reciprocal tariff on Indian goods is set to take effect, adding urgency to the bilateral talks, as you can imagine. Himanshu Shekhar has been tracking all the finer developments. He joins us live with a quick update at the moment. So the parallel dispute at the World Trade Organization, it's expected to not interfere with the current BTA negotiations, right? Please take us through the key takeaways.
That's right, and that's exactly the statement that Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has made in Italy, where he has said very categorically that the talks are progressing very well. In fact, senior officials have told me that both India and the United States are seeking some kind of an interim deal ahead of the proposed first tranche of bilateral trade agreement by September, October this year. And of course, there is a deadline. As you remember, President Trump had paused the imposition of reciprocal tariffs till 9 July. So India and the US officials are now talking about an interim deal ahead of the July 9th deadline to ensure that Indian goods, the imposition of 26% reciprocal tariff by the Trump administration on Indian goods, that can be avoided. And that in that context, I think Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal's statement is very, very significant that the talks are progressing well. First set of officials arrived in India yesterday. Some more officials are expected to arrive today. And this is perhaps the fifth round of talks between the officials of India and the United States, who are constantly working to finalize the first tranche of the proposed bilateral trade agreement by September this year. And as you know, when Prime Minister Modi had met US President Donald Trump in February this year, there was a timeline that was decided, and the effort now is to adhere to this timeline and ensure that before the deadlines that I just mentioned, the progress is achieved. But there are some issues on which there are still differences. As you also mentioned about WTO, I have learned from sources that there are issues related with tariff on farm sector, for instance, the point that a US President has repeatedly made on the automobile, for instance. So there are sectors on which there are still discussions going on. But as I said, both India and the United States are seeking an interim deal ahead of the July 9th deadline, after which perhaps the reciprocal tariff that was imposed on goods coming to US from India will be activated. And at the moment they have been paused. So India is trying hard to convince US for an interim deal ahead of this deadline.
As always, Himanshu, thank you so much for breaking down the details for us. Well, US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, their feud is now out in the open as disagreements over Republican spending bill quickly turns personal. The implosion of the year's most consequential political alliance stemmed from Musk's repeated criticism of the Trump-backed package, and the breakup, well, it threatens to spill over into other arenas, as you can imagine. Trump has threatened to cut government contracts and subsidies for the tech mogul's businesses, which include SpaceX and Tesla, and Musk has said that Trump wouldn't have won the White House without his support and responded a yes to a post suggesting that the president should be impeached. Tesla shares, meanwhile, went into free fall as Donald Trump publicly feuded with the electric vehicle maker's billionaire CEO, his self-proclaimed first buddy, and investors as we speak are watching the unfolding drama with growing worry about what the fracas could mean for Musk's business empire. Nick Harper has the inside details from Washington, D.C., but first, listen in to Donald Trump's remarks.
Look, you know, I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the best things. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything. And I am right about the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it a great, big, beautiful bill because that's what it is. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Well, a very public bromance breakup playing out on social media during the course of the day here in Washington, D.C., during which we've seen both Donald Trump and Elon Musk throw around insults, threats, accusations, all of them on their respective social media sites. It started earlier in the day on Thursday when Donald Trump in the Oval Office was asked about Elon Musk, who he has, of course, been working very closely with during his first 4 or so months in office. But Donald Trump said that his relationship with him seems now to have changed. That after Elon Musk criticised his signature legislation that he's trying to push through Congress, a massive spending bill that would involve tax cuts as well. But Elon Musk says that it is an abomination, that it would undo much of the cost-cutting work that he did when he was heading up the Department of Government Efficiency. There is a suggestion from a non-partisan group that Donald Trump's legislation would add more than $2.4 trillion of US debt over the next 10 years. And then during the course of the day, we just saw all of this escalate, going from bad to worse to even worse. Donald Trump on social media saying that Elon Musk was crazy, with Elon Musk saying that Donald Trump would not have won the election without him, and saying that the president was showing such ingratitude now. And then things seemed to amp up a notch when Donald Trump suggested that he would cancel all of the government contracts that are currently in place for Elon Musk's companies. And the thinking is that if that were to happen, Elon Musk would lose somewhere in the region of $38 billion, an enormous hole in his balance sheet if that were to happen, involving a whole range of contracts in automotive, in space and in defence sectors. Elon Musk, in return, has suggested that he will decommission SpaceX's Dragon capsule. Now, this is the only way that US astronauts can get to and from the International Space Station. Without that capsule, it'll be very tough for the space program to continue. There was also a suggestion from Elon Musk that there should be a third political party being created in the United States, a way to get around what he sees as the problems in Donald Trump's Republican Party. Elon Musk posted to X a poll in which he's asking people to vote. Millions of people have already voted. That poll will end sometime on Friday. It's unlikely to lead to the creation of a third political party, but shows very much that relationship between the two men seems to have ended, and ended in quite spectacular fashion. It's unclear exactly how much further this spat will go, but there are potentially some massive implications at play here. Nick Harper, NDTV, Washington.
Well, it started with taxes, tariffs, and a budget bill, but it quickly spiraled into blackmail, black eyes, and the shadow of Jeffrey Epstein. This is no ordinary political spat. This is Elon Musk versus Donald Trump, a bromance gone ballistic. It was the bromance that actually launched a political juggernaut. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, pumped hundreds of millions into Donald Trump's re-election. Trump returned the favor, as you know, by handing Musk a flashy, made-up government role and unlimited political goodwill. But now, it's war. On social media, Musk is publicly accusing Trump of betrayal. Trump, never one to hold back, fired back, saying Elon's got Trump derangement syndrome, and even threatened to cancel his EV contracts. But beneath the insults is something deeper. What really triggered this big, beautiful breakup? It's the big, beautiful bill. Trump's signature economic plan that slashed welfare, boosts defense, and kills electric vehicle subsidies. So you see, Musk's empire could take a serious financial hit. And this isn't just about American politics. For India too, we should watch closely, because if Trump wins his way, clean energy giants like Tesla could lose momentum. India's EV ambitions, its solar push and global tech deals, all of it could get entangled in this mega fallout. So from bromance to blow up, Trump and Musk's big beautiful breakup isn't just a clash of egos. It seems like a power struggle with global stakes. The question now is, when two giants fall out, who pays the price? Well, the US president has also suggested Elon Musk has Trump derangement syndrome. We have that remark lined up for you. Listen in.
A lot of good things are happening in this room. And I'll tell you, he's not the first. People leave my administration and they love us. And then at some point they miss it so badly. And some of them embrace it and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it. But we have it with others too. They leave and they wake up in the morning and the glamour's gone, the whole world is different, and they become hostile. I don't know what it is. Someday you'll write a book about it and you'll let us know.
And for an expert stake, we have with us James Bowden on NDTV. James, always a pleasure to chat with you. Is this feud proof that Trump's political alliances are purely transactional and disposable once questioned?
I think to a degree, yes, but I think the ultimate key to understanding this entire process is really looking at Elon Musk. Very few people have ever talked about the fact that he suffers from Asperger's. He is on the autism spectrum. And so Asperger's people tend to be very hot and very cold. So they are either incredibly for you or incredibly against you. And that can change very rapidly. And so I think a lot of this feud has to do with the fact that Elon probably believed that he was going to have a continued role somewhere in government after the Doge period expired, and that without that, and also looking at some of the elements in the bill, he just decided to quickly go nuclear on Trump again, very much driven by this personality crisis. So I'm not really that surprised.
Meanwhile, James, Trump's actually threatening to kill EV subsidies and government contracts. Does this look like a president using public policy for personal revenge?
I definitely believe so. And this is why it was a very incredible conflict of interest to have Elon Musk, who was receiving all of these contracts, to be in such a position. Because as we see, with a personal fallout, with a removal of a job, now we have a lot of things at stake. Dragon X, the capsule, was one of our primary ways to get to the International Space Station. This is something that we have long needed in order to get around having rides with the Russians, because NASA can't get its rockets off. And so we desperately need this.
Meanwhile, James, as we wrap, I want to know your opinion. Who loses more in the long run? Trump, whose base may fracture, or Elon Musk, whose empire is so heavily exposed to government money?
I think they really both lose. I don't think that anybody is really coming out more presidential or more high personality or profile through this. I think that both leaders will suffer. We've watched as Tesla has tanked both by the Republicans and the Democrats. And Democrats because they didn't want to support Elon and his efforts in the government, but now Republicans because he's feuding with the dear leader of Trump. So, and Trump is looking a little petty as well. And with, the canceling of the contract, it continues to send out a lot of negative signals to the world that to deal with Trump is to deal with a very unstable element that cannot be trusted.
Well, James, thank you so much, as always, for sharing your views. We will, of course, keep in touch with you for regular updates as and when we hear from both the billionaires.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, in a flip-flop, the US President Donald Trump has said, And I quote, "We want to have foreign students come," though he signed an executive order on Wednesday night to block nearly all such students from coming to study at Harvard. Listen in to what the US president has just said.
Did you talk about the Chinese students? Are you allowing them to come to the US?
Chinese students are coming. No problem. No problem.
Okay, and on
It's our
Russia?
honor to have them, frankly. Look, we want to have foreign students, but we want them to be checked. In the case of Harvard and Columbia and others, all we want to do is see their list. There's no problem with that. This is anybody outside of our country, international students. Because when we see some of the people that we've been watching, we say, where do these people come from? How is that possible? No, we want to have foreign students come. We're very honored by it, but we want to see their list. Harvard didn't want to give us the list. They're going to be giving us the list now.
For further clarity on the matter, joining us, Dexter Roberts at the moment. Mr. Roberts, thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV. Now, on one hand, Trump says he's honored to host foreign students, as we've just heard, including Chinese students. But on the other, he's issuing visa bans, threatening Ivy League tax breaks. So what kind of message is this sending to global markets and also multinational education brands?
Well, I think it's clearly not a consistent message. It seems to have been a hallmark of the Trump administration since it took office January 20th to issue lots of policies, sometimes conflicting ones, and move very rapidly in trying to develop various international relations and also trade relations. So I think we're seeing more of that now. In the case with China, it suggests to me that the statement last week from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that they would aggressively, quote, aggressively revoke Chinese student visas might have been in part a negotiating ploy to try to reach a better deal with China on this broader trade deal. And what we've heard from Trump today after the meeting with Xi Jinping suggests that indeed that is the case.
Well, Mr. Roberts, many at this point are questioning how much of this is actually about national security or immigration and how much it is about political optics and silencing dissent on campus. But thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular updates. Meanwhile, the US president has said that Russia and Ukraine may need to fight for a while to assist efforts to bring peace, likening the two countries to bickering and fighting children. Trump was speaking alongside the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, who was visiting the White House, and Trump said, and I quote, that sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. And I gave that analogy to Putin yesterday. Listen in. Right, I'm told that we will line up that reaction for you, but for now, let's turn our attention to the other big, crucial Donald Trump headline. Trump and Xi Jinping have opened the line of communication. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping talked and agreed to talk some more, and the US president said that he and Xi cleared up disputes on rare earths exports during a call and that he accepted China's invitation to visit. Beijing says it's complied with tariff truce and that Trump welcomed Chinese students to study in the US, as you just heard from the US president in that reaction to a reporter's question. But for now, the tensions are still showing up in the data. I must highlight for you that the US trade deficit shrank 55.5% in April, month over month, on the largest ever plunge in imports as companies stopped massive front loading of goods. And speaking of hogging the global spotlight, well, another Trump headline, because Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is secretly holding direct talks with the US president to work out a framework for a trade and security agreement, the Globe and Mail is reporting. You must note that the talks between the leaders and top cabinet ministers are being held discreetly to ensure a positive outcome. This is what the report highlights, citing the US ambassador to Canada. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking all the finer developments for us. She joins us live from Vancouver at the moment. Maha, so we're given to understand, as per local media, that Canada's Mr. Carney and Trump are holding secret talks on trade and security?
Well, certainly the details of the conversation between Mark Carney and President Trump are being kept under the wraps. And both these leaders are holding direct talks, is what's coming through by way of some sources which are being quoted by the Canadian media, as well as Melanie Joly, the industry minister, has said that these negotiations are not going to happen in public. And we do know through the US ambassador to Canada, he's also spoken out and has indicated that the negotiations are taking place at the topmost level, which means that both these leaders are directly talking to each other. Some other information that is coming through suggests that they have been holding calls in the evenings and also been exchanging text messages as well. And as many people had already said, many experts were pointing out that tariffs are being used by President Trump as a negotiating tool. It appears to be turning out exactly that way, because it appears now, and as per the reports that are coming through, is that a trade agreement may be reached between Canada and the United States ahead of the G7 summit that is being hosted by Canada in the province of Alberta, for which President Trump is traveling to Canada, and that tariffs against Canada could be dropped as this agreement comes through. So clearly, the trade tactic of President Trump seems to have been working with not just Canada, but as we are seeing with some other countries as well. So trade being used as a negotiating tool appears to be working at this moment in favor of the United States.
Well, thank you so much, as always, Maha, for joining us with the latest information. Well, moving on to other news, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, who is in the United States leading the all-party delegation, was asked a question by his son Ishan about Pakistan's involvement in the Pahalgam terror attack. Ishan Tharoor asked whether any country had asked the delegation led by his father for evidence of Pakistan's involvement in the deadly Pahalgam terrorist attack on the 22nd of April that killed 26 people, mostly tourists. He also asked about Pakistan's consistent denial of its involvement in that attack. And to this, here's what Shashi Tharoor said.
There were three particular reasons I want to draw your attention to, all of you. The first is that we've had a 37-year pattern of repeated terror attacks from Pakistan, accompanied by repeated denials. I mean, Americans haven't forgotten that Pakistan didn't know, allegedly, where Osama bin Laden was until he was found in a Pakistani safe house right next to an army camp in a cantonment city. That's Pakistan. Mumbai attacks, they denied having anything to do with it. One of the terrorists was captured alive. His name, his identity, his address in Pakistan, everything was revealed. Under interrogation, he told us where he was trained, what was done.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.